755 is Real with David O'Brien and Eric O'Flaherty is on the air now.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of 755 is Real. Producer Cam here with you. A live room edition of 755 is Real. David and Eric answering your Braves questions in real time on the Athletic app. A great turnout as always. If you weren't able to join today but want to be notified when we do host the live rooms, make sure you're following David and Eric on Twitter at DOBrianATL and at UF34. Also, make sure you're following the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get the show. In addition, make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube, where we post all of our podcasts, including the video shows. In today's live room, stellar questions, as always. It's what we come to expect of you guys. Questions regarding the Braves daytime game woes. David and Eric kind of dissect and speculate on why Atlanta has struggled so much in those types of matchups. In addition, the guys look into Spencer Strider's oblique injury and how that may set up the Mets series. A question regarding the wild card versus the divisional crown. Is there a benefit actually to just playing the wild card game? David and Eric share their insight into that and much more in today's show. And as always, without you guys supporting the show, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing it. So thank you so much for your constant support. And without further ado, here's David and Eric.
Well, I guess the biggest one over the weekend was, before yesterday's base running snafu that proved quite costly, was Spencer Strider getting scratched from a start. You know, they called it oblique strain or oblique soreness. I really think it was one of those things that would not have stopped him from pitching, especially in a big game, but it was a convenient way to kind of shuffle the rotation and get him lined up to pitch in that Mets series, to get the three big guys lined up in that Mets series. And I'm assuming, you know, Fried and Kyle Wright are going to be the other two pitching in that 3-game Mets series. That's just me speculating. They have not said, but I'll be surprised if he doesn't start, you know, to open the week at Washington, which would put him in line to start that in the Mets series. I mean, that series is looming huge, obviously, and this is also a way to give him a little extra rest. He's up over 130 innings now, which is about 35 more than he pitched last year. And even though he's showing no sign of fatigue, I think they're probably looking at it as, you know, if he goes all the way through the postseason, you're going to end up being, you know, he could end up being 160 innings.
Yeah.
So I think this was a good way. I mean, I'm not doubting that he was a little sore, but I don't think it's something that normally would have probably kept him from starting. So I think this was a real smart move more than anything. He certainly didn't show any signs of being sore in that last outing.
No, he looks great. You know that if you go into the training room during the season, if you sat in there for 2 hours, somebody comes in for something.
Right.
Every guy comes in for something. And there's a lot of these things that, you know, yeah, you'd pitch through if it works out and it lines up with your schedule and everything. But this lining up with the way they probably would have wanted him to line up anyway, you just kind of push him back a day, and not to cause any kind of, you know, frenzy. You just say it's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and
right.
It's one of those things that just kind of works with, I think, the plan, and that's when you do it and bring it up. And I am sure. I mean, he hasn't thrown this many innings before, so it's something I'm sure they're trying to keep an eye on.
Yeah, because if he would have pitched his regular turn this weekend here in Philly, he would not have been in line to pitch in that Mets series. And you certainly want to have him pitching one of those 3 games in that Mets series.
You want him pitching. Yeah, in any big game, you want to give him a chance to be on the mound.
I mean, every game is big, you know, at this point, because they got to win as many as they can. But I think they have a better chance of beating the Mets with him on the mound than they would, you know, if he did not pitch one of those games. So, he looks great, and he's showing no sign of fatigue, and that's really huge for them because, man, if he's pitching like he has been lately in the postseason, you got to like your chances. I mean, because that's the kind of wipeout stuff. He's got stuff that he can dominate any team, you know?
I know. Yeah, I was thinking this morning, I was like, I know he doesn't have the track record, and you don't know what somebody's going to do in the postseason, but if you had a wild card game right now, it'd be hard not to start him.
Yeah, this guy's not going to be – he has not been phased by anything so far, and he's just such a sharp, intelligent guy that I just can't see the big lights or anything affecting him. I really can't. He stepped up to every challenge, and he's just such a calm, you know, really aware guy of everything. He's just so mature, and I really feel really confident in him, even more than I did say last year when Kyle Wright came up and pitched his ass off in the World Series. But I didn't know how he would respond to that. You know, I am confident of Strider. So I like their foursome with those three and Charlie. I like that foursome in the postseason, and you're certainly going to need 4 starters. So if they go, beyond that first round, and of course they still want to win the division and avoid that first round if at all possible, because you don't want to go into the Dodgers series. You don't want to face the Dodgers in the second round with your, number 4 guy pitching game 1. You'd much rather be able to line up your starters and go at the Dodgers full tilt. Because I like the Braves starters against the Dodgers starters. If they can line them up, go with their best guys. The Dodgers, rotation's got a lot of injury concerns right now, and I'd really like the Braves rotation going up against the Dodgers if they don't have to play that first round.
Yeah, and it's tough too because it's hard for me to look at Kershaw's regular season, even though he's having a great regular season. He's been banged up a little bit, but it's like guys like Charlie and Kershaw, I don't care how they did in the regular season.
Right.
There's something about when those bright lights come on. But still, I mean, I like you could almost, the top 3 for the Braves right now, you could almost just hit shuffle and line it up any way you want. And I don't really care who pitches 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
Charlie's been a little step behind, but he's still Charlie Morton.
Right. Yeah, that first 3, I don't think you can go wrong with that in any order. I agree. Just, you probably want to do it, based on trying to vary the look as much as you can from day to day to day. But that won't be a problem because all 3 of them are so different. I mean, So you got a big, tall, rangy lefty with a big breaking ball in Fried, who throws hard too. You got Kyle with his nasty stuff, big, tall right-hander. And then you got Strider, who's just a freak, a unicorn,
Yeah, he might as well not be left or right-handed with the fastball he has. It's like I don't think with these guys it matters if you go left, right, or right, left, right, because like you said, it's just 3 different looks. Kyle's got more the sinker slider, Fried's lefty with a hammer, and then Strider's fastball is just something that you're not seeing around the league. Like he's all by himself with that fastball, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah. So in this 4-game Phillies series, they got a break in that Wheeler came back last night. He missed a month, and he came back last night through 4 scoreless with 2 hits against the Blue Jays. So he will not pitch in this 4-game series against the Phillies, and they're on a roll right now, man. They're playing good ball. So it's going to be a tough matchup still, though. I mean, the Phillies got some pitching, and you're looking at Fried versus Ranger Suarez, who's pitched really well this year tonight. I mean, if Fried's on his game, you got to like him in that one, but it's a tough matchup. You got Odorizzi against Nola. That's a real tough matchup.
Yeah.
Braves, but the Braves hit Nola better than most teams do. Yep. So, and then you got Kyle Wright on Saturday going against Bailey Falter. Falter's pitched real well this year, lefty, but Kyle Wright's, Major League wins leader for a reason.
Yeah.
And so consistent. I mean, this guy gives you 6, 7 innings every time out, allows usually 1 or no runs, and at most 2 runs. So 2 earned runs. So that's pretty much what he's done every time out.
Ever since he learned how to minimize the damage, he's just been a different guy.
Night and day, yeah. And then Sunday you got Charlie going against Kyle Gibson. So should be a good series, real good series, and it's obviously hugely important. I mean, before you go to Washington, where you really hope to sweep the Nationals. I know anything can happen on a given night with a good start from a Nationals pitcher, but you really want to go up there looking to sweep that series before you face the Mets in the biggest series of the year, probably.
What's so tough about this time of year and the Mets playing so well is the Braves are on pace to win over 100 games, or at least 100. And
on pace went out 102.
you look at a series against the Nationals where you don't sweep them as like a disappointment, but throughout the season, if you win, that all you're trying to do is win series. And yesterday there was a base running blunder or whatever, but it was another good series. You took 2 out of 3. It's just tough with being in a division where 2 teams are going to win 100 games.
Yeah, it's going to be the Braves' first time to win 100 games since I think 2003. They won 101.
Yeah,
and they've already won like 5 more games than they won last year.
Yep. And they won the World Series.
And they still got almost 2 weeks left in the season. They took it. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's tough not to get wrapped up in the drama of it, and you definitely want to avoid that first round. But I mean, who won the NL West last year?
Yeah,
I think nobody remembers.
I think this competition, this tense competition, is really going to benefit both teams in the postseason. They're going to go in having stayed, foot to the gas the whole way, and with intense competition every day instead of that lull before going in. Both teams are going to be trying to win the division all the way to the end. They're not going to be like, okay, we'll settle for the wild card. So I think both teams are going to go into the postseason, the Mets and the Braves, playing good ball and intense, and not have to flip that switch the way the Braves sometimes did, back in the 90s, early 2000s, when they kind of clinched early like the Dodgers have done this year. And then you kind of catch your breath and line up your rotation and all that. Well, the Braves a lot of times had trouble flipping that switch and going back to intense mode. And a lot of times they got caught in that first round kind of asleep before they could get going again. Next thing you know, they lose that first game and you're trying to play catch up. So
it's like adrenaline practice, leading into the playoffs. When you have adrenaline, like you just got this extra burst of energy, everything just fires a little quicker, a little different, and you have to kind of breathe and calm yourself down. And when you go straight from, like 6 games, you wrap up the season in Miami and Pittsburgh, and you've got a 7-game lead and you're going to the playoffs, like that adrenaline's just not there. And then the playoffs hit and all of a sudden you're wired and you have to calm yourself down and figure out how to play like that. I think it's good to have, I guess I'd call it like high adrenaline reps leading into the postseason, so it's not such a foreign feeling.
And we saw that last year with the Braves.
Yeah.
They were playing right to the end, trying to win that division. They didn't clinch that division until the last week. So it was they were pushed, man. They had to really play well for a long stretch. And that's what they got to do this year. So, because they really do want to win the division, man. They're still a game behind. And that's what, everything's so magnified at this point. If that base running blunder had happened in, April, May, June, you'd have already turned the page and not be talking about it. But yesterday it felt like it was a kind of an opportunity wasted, as it turned out, because the Mets end up losing big to the Brewers. I mean, the Mets have got to be kicking themselves because the Braves lose earlier in a game the night before, or yesterday rather. The Braves lose, and then the Mets give up 5 runs or something like that in the 7th inning, and end up getting
blown out a little bit.
Brewers. So they had a chance to gain another half game on the Braves and did not. So, but everybody's going to ask about that. I don't think there's a real clear. There's nobody. Everybody wants somebody to take all the blame for that blunder yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody can take all the blame, but I thought Wash was clearly indecisive in that you can't wave Riley home. He's a 230-pound guy. Wave him home, and Riley's going full tilt by that point around third base, and then throw up the stop sign when he's already past third base. I mean, he's lucky he didn't, I'm surprised he was able to stop and get back as quickly as he did. So I thought Wash was at fault there, but I thought also Contreras was at fault in that he was going. You got to credit the intensity. Contreras is trying to get to third after he gets that good read on it. Riley didn't get a good read. Contreras did. But at the same time, you got to be aware, young guys, you can't just put your head down and run like you're, in a 100-meter dash with not being aware of what's happening in front of you, because anything could happen. I mean, Riley could fall down, he could trip, and you got to be aware of that, not just running full bore. So I thought Wash made a mistake there, which is, uncharacteristic of Wash. And that was a little late to do that to a 240-pound guy. And I thought Contreras needed to be a little more aware of what was happening in front of him rather than he was almost to third base, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if Contreras, you can't just run the bases staring at the third base coach. You're kind of taking a look. You got to hit the bag. You look up again. I think it was just an awkward play. The timing of it. I don't think it's like this huge, crazy blunder. I think it's just an awkward play. Contreras had the ball in front of him, so he could see whether second baseman was going to catch that ball or not. Riley had to go, he's not facing that direction. He's trying to turn to third, so he has to look and watch. And then he gets goes back to the bag, turns on the jets and tries to go around third. Wash threw up a late stop sign, and I'm sure Contreras looked up and saw Wash waving, and he's about to you got to put your head down and run at that point. He's a catcher. So I don't think it's like this massive mess up. I think it was just an unfortunate, play. It's stuff that happens, and you can focus on one base running blunder. You can look at it and say, shit, we scored 2 runs. I mean, you can look at the whole game, and there's plenty of things that pop up throughout the game that cost you over that one play. But really, for me, when I watched it, I wasn't like, oh, this guy dicked up, that guy messed up. I think Wash definitely threw up a late stop sign. Yeah. And Contreras has to be looking up, and I mean, I just wish people could understand how fast that's happening.
Exactly.
I mean, when you're watching it, you get 17 replays. It's easy to dissect, but when it's happening full speed. Yeah, I mean, you got people criticizing Contreras who haven't ran full speed in 10 years. Yeah, you start running full speed, and you're in the major leagues. There's a lot happening. So I don't.
Crowds roaring. You're thinking, it's intense, man.
There's so much happening, and there's a lot going on. And they're pro athletes, and they got to be able to handle it. But I just don't think it was a massive dick up. I just think it was just kind of an awkward play that cost them.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some base running mistakes lately, some small ones, some, medium ones, and, so it kind of adds up, and it kind of seems like they've been a little bit sloppy on the bases lately, and I think that's why they had a team meeting the day before that, ironically. But, yesterday's was one of those things where just a couple of little things ends up being a big play, but it wasn't like anybody just really screwed up totally. But one thing about the speed of the game, man, I tell people, if you ever get a chance to go to spring training game, go down to as close as you can get to the field, go to the railing, and just watch an inning, because you will be stunned at how fast Major League Baseball games are. Even if you go to minor league games and you got good seats at minor league games, there is a noticeable difference in the game, the minor league games, the college games, and the major league games. There's a noticeable difference in the speed of everything.
And that's the biggest thing guys struggle with as they climb the levels, is the game just gets faster and faster and faster. Yeah. And these guys are able to make the correct decisions on the fly, without even really thinking about it. Like, it just becomes natural to them because they get used to that speed of the game. But I agree. I mean, even if you watch an NBA game on TV, it's like, all right, these guys are kind of cruising up and down the court. You get some seats close to courtside, and you see a 6'8" dude just flying down the court. It's hard to appreciate on TV the speed that all these guys are running. And even like a slow major leaguer, people making fun of Olsen. Yeah. If they tried to have a foot race with him, he probably smokes them.
Yeah, but man, just watching a play develop though, like a bang bang play at first base, it happened so fast, man. The running, the throwing, and the infielders field balls and throw harder than so much better, so much quicker than what you see at lower levels. It's just so precise. There is nothing. Yeah. I mean, it's maximum, efficiency, which you have to do to get major league runners out. And as a runner, you have to go full bore if you have any chance of beating out an infield hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how I break it down, is I just don't. It's hard to criticize that too heavily for me, because I know how fast the game is, and plays like that happen so much faster when you're running full speed than when you're watching on TV.
Let's you want to take a couple questions here, man?
Yeah. Let's open it up. Who we got? Jeremy P. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, guys. First, I just want to say that's a really good point you guys make about the Braves are clearly having a better regular season this year than this year. but because of where they are in the standings, everybody's perspective is all jumbled up. And because of the year the Mets are having, it's like, oh, we lose a game to the Nationals, and it's, but
these are two of the best three teams.
Right.
These are two of the best three teams in the National League.
I want to talk about, and there were some comments that kind of have strengthened what I think on these day games. I mean, everything seemed to be, you were talking about, hopefully we sweep the Nats when we play them next. Well, we had a chance to sweep them yesterday, and everything was in our favor, except it was a day game. That seems to be what comes against us. And then I saw somebody say, and I've just noticed this year, but during Snicker's whole time, that this Braves have kind of struggled more in day games than night games. And I don't know if you would know anything about that, DOB, but just you guys, have you thought about that? What goes on? I kind of think it's maybe a preparation thing where they don't get the same, they've already have optional batting practice. You guys talked about that a month or two ago. So when they come into day games, are they getting even less kind of prep? And because it's especially the hitters that struggle. So just wanted to see if you guys would kick that around a little bit.
I don't. Let me mute you real quick because it's echoing. For me, I pitched great in day games my whole career, and I have zero reasoning for it. It just worked out. We had a year where we lost on Monday all the time until mid-August or something, and we started wearing high pants and we started winning on Mondays. There's something. The only thing I can think of is that the Braves, typically don't give teams getaway days, so they're used to playing at night more. But that's just speculation. I don't think it's a preparation thing. They know they've struggled in day games. For whatever reason, they just continue to struggle in them. There's just some things that happen in a major league season that have no explanation, and that's one of them for me.
I'm going to make an assessment of what I've seen, something that I've noticed, and it might be entirely wrong. It might have no effect on what's happening. But, at this point, anybody is speculating because, we've asked the players, we've asked Snit, we've asked everybody, and nobody seems to have an answer. But to me, what you're talking about with BP, almost nobody takes BP before day games. That's why if you get there, you're a fan, you're disappointed because nobody takes it, especially at a 12:20 start.
Right.
That's the problem. I don't know why they start a game at 12:20. I really don't.
Throws your clock off.
Huh?
It throws your clock off. In a major league season, you're going to bed at 2 a.m. every night.
Yeah. And you played the night before, so I don't understand why you would start any earlier than like 1:20. The Braves have a problem with the parking is why they don't have more day games because, they use these businesses parking around. That's one thing that they didn't do when they built. It's about the only thing they didn't do right when they built that place. They don't have enough parking, so they have to use a lot of businesses around, which is why it's hard to have day games. But they have to have them if the visiting team is flying more than 2 hours. So that's a major league rule. So hardly anybody takes BP before day games. But the Braves have a lot of show and goes on day games, especially if they play the night before. And Snit's really good about getting guys rest and all that, and they appreciate it and all that. But I think maybe they could use a little more, get there a little earlier for those day games. Because I just think when you go from doing certain things a certain way for a few hours, you get prepped for a night game, whether even if BP's optional, most guys still hit for those night games. And if they don't, they hit in the cage indoors. They do something, But even the guys that don't hit, they're loosening up. They're doing their things. With the day games, I've noticed that they have a lot of later. They can get there late, and they just don't have a lot of time to get going, to get ready.
Yeah.
And I think it could affect them. I really do. I'm not saying that every other team, gets there 3 hours early or anything, but I just think that Snit maybe it's a little late in the game to do it now, but. And because in the postseason, it's not going to be a problem. It damn sure better not be a problem. You're not going to have show and goes for a playoff game that starts at 1.
Yeah.
But I think during the regular season, that is a problem at times. And I think they could stand to get there an hour earlier, some of the guys, and get going. Just get the juices flowing, man. have a couple more cups of coffee, do whatever you have to do to get loosened up, warmed up indoors in the cage, throwing, whatever it is. I really think they can stand to get there a little earlier on some of those. And that's just my amateur assessment. And I might be entirely wrong. And some of the players might hear this and go, no, that ain't it. But to me, that's just what I've observed. And I think they get off the slow. It seems like they come out in day games and have a tough time stringing together one or two hits or a couple of hits and getting anything going offensively. Just so many day games where you look up and they've got one hit in the first 5 innings. So that's just.
I mean, there might be something to that. There's definitely there's a tendency on those day games to just be in, Sunday mode and just kind of cruising into it. I don't know. I'd like to think these guys are professional athletes that they know what they need to do to prepare for those games and get themselves going. But hey, I mean, I guess you could definitely. I mean, I would fall into that trap sometimes. Luckily, I was a reliever, so it didn't matter.
Right.
But I'd fall into that trap of another cup of coffee and watch SportsCenter for another half hour, 40 minutes, and just kind of drag yourself into your daily routine and come in a little sleepy. But I would just, for me, I would give the guys the benefit of the doubt that they're doing what they need to do to prepare. It's almost like, honestly, a lot of times I've been on teams that, you take full BP on a day game, and all of a sudden I got to start my routine at 8 o'clock.
Right. And that's not realistic, I don't think.
No, it happens though, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So you got to start all your personal prep, because your window to get ready for the game goes from, you get there at 2 for a 7 o'clock game. You got 5 hours to get ready. On a day game after a night game, you're probably getting to the park 9:30, and BP would be at 10:10 if you were hitting it, or 10:30, somewhere around there, even if it's optional. So all of a sudden your whole routine's kind of sped up, and you don't have time to do the individual things you need to do to get ready for the game. So for me, I loved when we didn't hit, because it was like, okay, now I could take my time and get right. We'll go out and throw it like 11:30 or 12, and I'll feel the same. I don't know, how that affects position players' routines.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, you got to look at it too. Like, how are they playing the day after a night game? Yeah. If you have the whole team up at, 7:30 after a night game, and they got BP at 10 o'clock, players hate you for that.
Yeah.
Because you're losing 2 hours of sleep, and it might catch up with you the next day too. So, I mean, it's a tough one, but I just got to give guys the benefit of the doubt that, they know what they need to do to prepare. And if anything, it needed to change, it'd be just kind of a meeting about it. Like, hey guys, we suck in day games. Get your shit going. Kind of.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about, and I know they can't get there and take full BP and all that. That'd be stupid. Guys would be out there bitter about it and stuff.
Yep.
It could be counterproductive. And I think, and I don't think consciously that anybody is trying, or, that goes, what, I should be here earlier. I just think a lot of these are really young guys, man, in their first seasons,
Yeah. So maybe they don't know, that you have to learn kind of what you need to be doing to get ready for those games. That can make sense.
And I just see the time that they have to report for these day games sometimes, and I'm going, that's so different than any night game that they have. As far as it'd be like if they had a 7:20 start, and they could get there at 5:30.
4:50. Yeah.
So anyway, that's just because I've wondered the same thing. I mean, they're 4 games under 500 in day games, and they're 41 games over 500 in night games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty glaring.
Yeah, no, that's hard to argue with. I mean, if anything,
if you're a 500 team in day games, you'd be 3 games up in the division.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I would change if I was managing is maybe just talk to guys like, hey, let's all get a sweat going, wake the body up, get moving, just a little earlier and try to wake up. But like I said, we had that year we couldn't win on Mondays. It's like, what were we doing on Mondays? Yeah. Who knows? It wasn't anything different. Sometimes years just stack up like this. I don't know how they played on day games last year, but sometimes these things just happen in baseball, and you can analyze them all you want, and there's just zero explanation.
All right. What else we got here?
Let's see who we got. Aaron F. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Not bad.
Yeah, so I know Dave already kind of talked about it for a minute there, and you commented on it as well, Eric, but just the overall intensity going into the playoffs, winning the division versus going in as a wild card. I kind of feel like the Braves had a good advantage last year, kind of fighting up until the end, and that may be the case this year as well. But just want to get you guys' thoughts. Do you think that there's any advantage to playing in the wild card versus winning the division, just having that intensity? And do you think it could play out a little bit better for us if they do?
I think that any advantage you get in staying sharp, because there is something to that. Having you kind of worry a little bit if your team has like 6 games off while the other teams are playing the division series, or 5 days off. But I think any positive there is to that is far outweighed by having to use your first 2 or 3 best starting pitchers.
Yeah, I agree. And skipping around. You can't lose that round if you don't play in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, definitely. I think you guys kind of commented on this as well, but I think the Braves are definitely set up a little bit better going into that type of a situation than the Mets would. Overall, I think our top 4 is probably better than the Mets' top 4. Obviously, with DeGrom and Scherzer, they're pretty well set up. But I think, to you guys' point, you could pretty much line up any of our top 4 as a starter in Game 1, and they'd be pretty well set up, even if they had to go through the wild card.
If the Mets had to play a wild card series, they would have to use DeGrom and Scherzer. And think about it, neither of those guys is a guy you're going to bring back on short rest at all. Not at this point. Scherzer, earlier in his career, but not now. And certainly not DeGrom. He's been going on extra rest ever since he came off the IL.
And he's headed into free agency, so he might be a little more reluctant.
Yeah, they're like wondering how he's going to pitch on regular rest in the postseason.
Yeah.
So I
think that would be the biggest advantage is, if you were looking at matching up with the Mets or another team, the biggest advantage for me would be their starting pitching getting jacked up versus, you having to use yours. Because I think the Braves they're not 100% interchangeable, but they're pretty strong 1 through 4. If you could dick up another team's, their plan by them having to use, Scherzer and DeGrom, that'd be a pretty big benefit.
And it's certainly not the same, but you could have a couple of, inter-squad type games in that interim because you got to do something to stay sharp.
You have to.
But it's not the same. But, man, to be able to line up your best 4 starters any way you want for your first round in a division series would be pretty huge compared to the alternative of having to use 2 or all 3 of your top 3 starters in that wild card series.
Yeah, and I do think there's an advantage of getting that first really high adrenaline game out of the way. But after Game 1 in a 5 or 7 game series, I don't think it's as big of a factor. But obviously, Game 1's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see who else we got here. Harry B. What's up, Harry?
Hi. Mike Soroka is my question. Obviously, we all love him. Great story. I really was hoping to see him maybe soon, but I guess the real question now is, do you think he's going to get on the playoff roster? Do you think they're going to let him see some innings?
No. He's not done anything to warrant being on the playoff roster.
Yeah, if he was dealing.
He's never pitched in relief in his career. And coming off this Achilles thing, I think the last thing you want to do is have him not knowing when he's going to be when he's going to be called upon or whatever. So all of a sudden you're going to go, you've never pitched in relief in your career and you're coming off something that no pitcher has ever come back from. So get in there and throw a few innings of relief. And they got a bullpen. They only need like 4 guys going strong in their bullpen because they hope to God they don't need a long reliever, at some point in the postseason. But if they do, they've got 1 or 2 of those guys, that can go multiple innings, like a McHugh or Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder might end up being that long guy in the thing.
Yeah.
But Bryce Elder is certainly more qualified or more suited to do that long relief role right now than Soroka is.
The last thing I'd ever do is give Soroka an adrenaline shot and put him in a random inning, mess with his preparation and jack him up with energy.
And then he's coming off the mound trying to field the ball because he can't, he's got to do it. He's there for 1 inning.
I wouldn't, if he was absolutely dealing and there was a couple starters really falling off right now, and you felt like you really needed a little extra depth, I'd think about it. But even then, I just can't imagine a situation where I would want to put him into just kind of a situation where he can't prepare perfectly coming off this second Achilles surgery. I'd want to have him 100% ready. I want him knowing when he's going to pitch. I think it'd be cool, if they clinch the division or something to get him an inning or give him a start toward the end of the season. I think that'd be pretty damn cool for him just to step back on a major league mound. But as far as playoffs go and him not throwing his best right now and coming off the injury, it's something I wouldn't push at all.
Yeah, I thought if it's settled, either they're gonna if they clinch the division, or if the Mets clinch the division before or during that Marlins series. I mean, I could see giving Soroka one of those starts if they don't mean anything. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to use one of your main guys. And I could see Elder getting a start too, because he's pitched really well in his 2 starts against the Marlins, and also in his start the other day against the Nationals. He's done a great job in his 3 spot starts since he first got demoted. So, that's the only way I could see Soroka getting a start before the year's over, is if those Marlin games don't mean anything. Then that might really help him going into the offseason if he could pitch 3 or 4 innings in one of those games.
Yeah, and I even if for me, if they could guarantee him the 9th, or just say, this guy's going 3, you have the 4th inning or something, let him fully prepare.
Right, piggyback maybe.
I think that'd be pretty cool for him if you want to let him rack up a few innings. It's a really cool story when he gets back on the major league mound, but it's not the top priority, and his health's the top priority number 1. But I do think it'd be really cool if they could find a way to get him out there this year, just for him, for closure to be back on the mound and get to look forward to next season.
But I don't think, right now, I don't think that the thing's going to be settled until maybe until the last day of the season, but probably not before that Marlins series. Certainly not until the Mets series is over.
Yes, it's been this way the whole year.
Yeah.
Kelly W.
Hey, Eric. It's Kelly. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I have a quick question. You brought up starting rotation earlier. I'm looking at the back end. How close do you think the competition will be between Kenley and Edwin? Or let me put it a little bit clearer. Do you think Kenley will come back from the recent losses?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been through it. If you look at the last however many years with the Dodgers, he's had spurts like this throughout his time. Me and Dave have talked about it. I wouldn't be afraid to have Iglesias close. And if he struggles in the postseason early, I think you kind of got to have a quick trigger on that. But at the same time, he's bounced back from a lot. He looked better yesterday. It's just kind of a situation I think you got to play by ear.
Yeah, I agree. I'm concerned about Diaz, but again, I wouldn't rule Jensen out.
Yeah, Snit is loyal to a fault, if anything, to his guys, and with Kenley, he's not jerked him out of the role like they did, and like Dave Roberts did a couple of times, including during the postseason. If people remember, he wasn't closing all the games in 2020 when they won the World Series. So I think Kenley does appreciate the fact that Snit stood by him, but at the same time, if Snit pulled him from that role, it also wouldn't be the first time it's happened to him. But he has pitched better in like 3 out of the last 4. And you know what? The other night, everybody was ragging on him, but that was 2 bunts, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they're laying down bunts, and one of them was a little bloop bunt that was like into no man's land. I mean, it was just – that was ridiculous. I mean, it's a 6'6" guy, 280 pounds or 70 pounds trying to go field this bunt. He's lucky he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Then they put down another bunt, and it just kind of went sideways. But he didn't pitch bad in that game. Then they get a legit single. But even that, it wasn't like they were crushing the ball off of him. I didn't think he pitched that bad at all in that game.
I thought he looked better. I thought his cutter looked tighter. Yeah, just the swings he was getting. When I see him getting those cutters up in the zone, and righties, you can tell they're waiting for it to break, and it breaks late, and they swing late, and they swing under it. that's when I can tell his cutter's really tight and looking good. But yeah, that inning the other day, it was like, a bunt. And then the second bunt, I think Olsen got an error on.
Yep.
So unearned run. And that's one of those tests too. It's like when you're going terrible and an inning starts out like that and starts to unravel, kind of controlling it and keep throwing good pitches. And he did. I mean, he gave up a single, but he gave up a single in an inning. It's not a big deal for a closer.
And really, he was all out of sorts at that point, or at least they had to come out and check on him. The trainer did, because he's a big man, and his neck and back got a little out of whack on that, trying to feel that bunt when he ran into, I think it was Grissom. He ran into him, and it's just like, it was a weird inning. So
that was one of those innings you have when you're going bad.
Yeah.
When things are just kind of piling up on you, and he did a good job controlling
But I thought he pitched pretty well in the previous, like three out of the previous 4 outings, and he's shown some progress for sure. So, but it's nice they got this depth, because very few teams have the depth they do in the bullpen. The Mets have a better closer, obviously. They got the best closer on the planet right now.
Yeah.
But the Braves bullpen is better than the Mets bullpen as far as depth wise. If you're going to go like 5 deep, the Braves is better. And I'm including Matzik in that. He's not back where he was last year for sure, but he's showing some signs of getting there. But, Mentor's pitching well again now, and Iglesias has been lights out since they got him. That was a great trade.
That was a great trade.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take Tupac over Narco any day.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, David.
Yep. Thank you.
Trey S., last question. What's up, Trey?
How you doing, Eric?
Not bad, man.
Good. So, assuming that we end up in the wild card round, just for the sake of this conversation, I would assume that in all likelihood, Fried is going to start game 1, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's assume again that we win game 1. Would you consider maybe saving Strider for down the road and potential, or do you play your best 2 cards right off the bat?
You got to win it.
You got to get through that series for me.
Yeah, because if you win it in 2 games, then you got Kyle Wright to start game 3 for you, or game 1 in the next round for you. Yeah, if you try to get cute like that, then you're going to end up. Yeah.
Anytime in baseball you start counting your cards ahead of time,
especially in the postseason. Especially in the postseason, man.
Right.
That will bite you in the ass. You got to use your best guys and win the thing and get done.
Yeah, you win game 1. You say we want to win game 2, be done. Have Kyle start game 1 of the division series and keep going.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean that's assuming he starts Strider in 2. I don't even know if he will. I mean, Snit loves Kyle Wright. So, but whatever order he has, I don't think he's going to change that based on whether they win, game 1. But I think if I had to guess, I think it'll be Strider in game 2. I really do.
Right, because his ceiling is so high.
Yeah.
And that's the safety, I guess, with Fried is his floor, I guess, would be a little bit higher. But in my head, I guess I was just thinking it'd be nice to potentially have Strider available if we were to win game 2 to start game 1. But I think you're right.
Well, you might have him anyway, but I think that, just the thought process of looking forward to the next series before you handle the first round is it's just the baseball gods hate that.
Right. Okay, cool. That was my question. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Love the show.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much to all who turned out to the live room. It was a great time. Again, if you want to be notified when we do host the live rooms, not only should you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast, but also make sure you are a member of The Athletic. Perfect deal going on right now. $1 a month for 6 months at theathletic.com/755. You can't beat it. Less than a cup of coffee for the best sports writing in the biz, and also your guys' favorite Braves podcast. And just a quick show update as well before we head out. We will be back next Tuesday with another live room. Eric's on vacation, so we're going to have to do some remote finagling and logistical stuff. So we're going to be doing another live room next week on Tuesday. Make sure you guys are following us on all the platforms, as mentioned before, and the guys on Twitter, so you know when we will be hosting that live room. From David and Eric, we're out. 755 is real. See you guys next week.